The startup journey is a journey and a fight against yourself.
With capital comes speed. You can hire a team. If you build everything yourself, you're just going to be too slow.
I'm looking for purpose companions.
This planet is a point in a big universe, so don't take yourself so serious.
One thing that I will say, you have to plan for scale.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode.
To the second episode.
Welcome to
the fourth episode
of The Founder Story. I talk to startups every day with founders, and one thing they mention is that they feel like sometimes like lone warriors.
And they're saying, oh, you know, we're pretty good in one thing, but we've heard from other founders they're good in another thing. We would love to exchange with them. So clearly there's a need for this community.
We have a lot of founders here who have built their company on a digital-first vision.
My name is Federico.
My name is Hilda.
I'm Pierre. I'm the founder of Happy Meter.
In my life, I founded 4 different companies.
Everyone here is coming with the idea that they want to improve, to make a change.
You do have real founder, you have company serving them, you have people from Google.
It's special because we have different point of views of the solutions you can apply to the problems.
Yeah, we will definitely keep working on new ideas and how can we make this format even better, even bigger, and even more beneficial for everyone involved.
The venue is excellent. The food is excellent, and the team of Google excellent as well.
I love coming here.
I can't wait to attend the next one.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Founder Story Season 2 here at Google Zurich. It's such an excitement to see you all coming back, and at the same time, it makes me so happy to see that we have new joiners who join us for the first time here at the Founder Story. My name is Hans, and I'm your host for today for this episode, and I'm going to walk you through to an episode which we hopefully going to call it a very inspirational one. For those who know Founder Story, know this life very well. Because in the past, it was not only just the show we delivered you or the networking we're going to have afterwards or the conversations happening outside, but it was also the impressions you've shared, the insight you posted, and all the feedback you've given us on social media. And all of you did that through the hashtag, the Founders Story GCP. And I encourage you to do all the same today because you won't be the only one doing this. And for those who know what's going to come now, in good old Founder Story fashion, it's a selfie. Because what I'm going to do later tonight, after the show, is to post it on my social media with the hashtag and share my impressions, my learnings, and what the founder has said today. And I hope you all will do the same because we have once again, a very exciting lineup of founders and to tell their stories and what they have gone through. Also, I want to thank you all for sharing that so vividly and bringing out the word, but you did something which we usually in the tech world called a leak before we launch something. And that leak, in this case though, was something good. And I want to show you now what the leak has brought us to.
Being a founder and founding a business is incredibly hard. It's tough, it's lonely, and it's full of surprises and challenges all the time.
Do it, test it, check the number, throw it away if it's not working out.
People on the panel were super honest and very straightforward.
Don't spend time on startup talk. Get shit done.
Well, we got shit done. And in fact, we're very happy to share you that 2 weeks ago, our Berlin team from the Google office there have launched the first episode in Germany. Thanks to all of you, your feedback, your contribution. It grew so much that Google Germany has decided to launch that episode. And with that, a big applause to the Berlin team in Google and all the founders there as well. They did an amazing team, and as we all know here, sometimes Zurich feels like the little brother of the startup scene, what's happening in Berlin, but seeing that they see the potential there to bring the founders together, have an open conversation, especially share their stories, what they're going through. This is really heartwarming to see that there's obviously a need for such a community. And if you follow later my colleague's LinkedIn profile, you will see all the links to the recording, and you can see the full episode, and I can guarantee you're in for a treat. But the league doesn't stop there. Tonight, we're very happy to announce you that the founder story went international. So as we speak here in this room, here in Zurich, in Google Zurich here, the episode is happening parallel in Dublin, in Stockholm, and of course, here where it all began in Zurich. And once again, from the team of creating this event, we really like to thank you for that. And as always, we know there's a newcomers joining this format, and for the first time you experience the founder story and you don't even know what you're up for tonight. Well, what is the founder story? It is a format, it is a community where we bring founders together of companies we call digital native. Those who see digital as their superpower to disrupt the world they're in. But while they're doing so, and I hope all of you founders tonight will feel that sometimes, you feel like you're very alone and you feel like you want to tackle those challenges, but you also wish to have someone to share your experiences with, and you just don't know how to reach out to. And that is exactly what the founder story is for, because everyone has a story to tell, whether they're an early startup or a scale-up, it doesn't matter. You will encounter challenges you wish you had a partner to exchange your thoughts with. And we want to create exactly a platform for that. And last year, the way how we did that, we asked around, what are your challenges? And typically there were business challenges. So we have challenges in marketing, in sales, or finding the right people, right? And as we continued the episode last year, we realized if you're good in one part, inevitably you still have to deal with other parts. No matter if you're a good people founder, you will have to deal with the tech part. If you're a good sales founder, you will have to understand marketing, because these are interdisciplinary skills as a founder you cannot shy away from. All right. So we got a lot of feedback and asked, okay, what is other challenges you're trying to tackle? And we got a lot of feedback from founders who say, well, since we are talking every task or discipline anyways, why not focusing on industries? Because that's where the difference sometimes lies, because whether you're fintech or you're in e-commerce, right, that's where the challenges in marketing, sales, and so on differ from each other. So this year, we will come back with a focus on a vertical specific, and we want to hear from the founders how they tackle their verticals, whether it's fintech, whether it's blockchain, whether sometimes from a legal perspective, and tonight, we look at it how to leverage tech for a social impact. Because sometimes out there, when we disrupt the world, when we use digitalization to create new business models, it's not only about profit, it's not only about revenue or growth, these are all important KPIs for the health, but sometimes it really matters how we leave the world behind as we have entered it, and hopefully we leave it in a better place. And I have a homework for you all tonight in this room when you leave, because I want to give you 3 numbers, which you hopefully memorize, because these are not good numbers. These are not numbers we're happy of when we see them. These are numbers which the founders we will bring tonight, each individually tries to tackle one of these numbers and improve them. But before I tell you what the number stands for, I want to engage you a little bit. So I want to ask you all maybe what the first number could stand for. 736 million. What could it be? And again, it's not a number we're happy about. Shout out, yell in, whatever you want to say. You can, people? Say it again? People in poverty. It's a terrible number. It would be a terrible fact, but no, this number doesn't stand for that. Plastic bags, 736 million plastic bags, also terrible, but it's not that. One more guess, and then I'm going to unveil. No access to education, no access to water, right? All terrible things. And if we even wrap our heads around the number, if any of that was true, it's horrific. And I think in any of these areas you mentioned, the numbers probably are in the triple-digit millions. Well, what 736 million stands for is today, 736 million women suffer or become victim of domestic violence. 1 out of 3 women today has to suffer domestic violence, a form of violence which is very silent sometimes. And out there in the world, we never know about it. Sometimes it happens within your closest friends, and people are trapped in that. And yet it happens to 736 million women today. And women, because domestic violence, have the tendency to fall onto women. And the startup we're going to talk about today wants exactly to change that. $45. What could that be? When we did the rehearsal, one of my friends said, like, 736 million is the account I wish I had, the bank account, and $45 is what I actually had, right? So this is not it, so I can tell you. It would be horrible if that was on my bank account. But $745. What could that number stand for, and why would it be bad? You getting there? And now, guess where? Well, it's actually not the minimum wage. I just have to, but it has to do with the income. $45 is the average income of a person living in Sierra Leone today. As a comparison to that, the average income in Switzerland is at 6,800, and if you even narrow it down a little bit to Zurich, it would be 8,500 Swiss francs per month. And that makes it 200 times more than what a person just living in another location at the other end of the world would get as a monthly income. Imagine the limitation it would do on your life. 2%. Personally, that is something I feel the hardest to grasp, especially because we're very close to it, in fact. What could 2% stand for? I hope I didn't ruin the mood a little bit with so many, because we have like really cool, inspiring stories. But like, yeah, it starts with some waking up. 2% is the number of all VC investments going into female-led startups. Okay, so 2% of the money. And now people can say, well, wait a minute, Hans, there's just not enough female founders out there, you know, like, and the money just flows according, and it's just a reflection of what the startup scene looks like. Well, I'd like to challenge you, because for every 5 male founders, there's 4 female founders. So it can't be that. So these numbers must change. I hope you agree with me. And I hope it doesn't just lie on the shoulders of the courageous founders we have today, but we make it a little bit of everyone's mission to improve those numbers. And as you're going to hear tonight from the founders, how they tackle it, but also how they build their company also to get there and to challenge those statistics, right? You will have a lot of questions coming up, and you will have a lot of inputs, and sometimes you just want to throw in a comment because you want to like share your perspective. And we don't want to make it just a show about the founders tonight. We want to make it an inclusive community. So please now take out your phone and participate through this QR code, because then you can post your questions live as you hear them speaking. It will redirect you to a tool called Mentimeter. And for those who have a little bit of a poor internet, because it's actually quite a soundproof room here, you can open up Google Guest for the Wi-Fi, password free, and then you just are online and you can scan this. Because sometimes when you're hearing the conversation, right, it takes a little longer until the end, because in the end of the panel discussion, we will open up again with the Q&A, and we will look at the questions you have all posted or the comments. You can even upvote each other's questions. So when you see someone, and that is usually the interesting part, because you see people in the room thinking alike, and you can upvote their questions. And we usually have about time to pick 5 to 10 questions in the end to address it to the panelists. So I see you all already putting your phones away. That's very good. Otherwise, take a picture, and then you can still join later. 736 million, very big number to grasp, to help women coming out of domestic violence. And it's very hard to even imagine how you would tackle that challenge to improve that. But the founder of the first startup here coming on stage exactly uses technology. We're digital natives here, right, as a company. Uses technology because it provides a superpower of scaling across the globe and gives it a real hope to actually get there, that we can bring this number down. So Rhiana, the founder of Spring Act, has actually learned coding when she was 17. Interesting with the perspective of tackling problem solving, because that was the satisfaction she got. And I remember when we had the first chat, she described me so vividly, like when you find this one comma when it's set in the wrong way and you solve the whole code and everything works again. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but my heart beat literally a little bit faster hearing that excitement. Later, though, when she got into her adult life, she became a human rights lawyer, where she was then sent to one of the missions in Senegal. This is where the idea of Spring Act sparked to create a chatbot for domestic violence. The chatbot of Spring Act is called Sophia. I actually tested it myself to just understand how this works, right? Like, how would someone approach such a chatbot? And I was very happy to see it's not just for the person in need, but it's also for the ecosystem, and it's for the people to understand a little bit what's going on. But sometimes, as I said before, it's a very silent force, which needs to be uncovered. So as we introduce our speakers to the stage, usually we want to show a little bit the other side of a founder's life, right? Because we're going to hear all about the mission and what they're trying to attack, and like it feels like they've spent 48 hours a day on those missions, but they have a life too outside of being a founder, right? And then so we introduce them with a little bit of a story. And it's up to you, though, to vote whether that story is true or false. So if you think the next thing I'm going to tell you is true, you raise your hands. Otherwise, you can keep them down because you think it's just way too crazy that someone, besides being a founder, does that too. So Rhiana's fun story is that she likes to be active, so much so that she was actually a stunt double. And you might have seen her in the movies of James Bond and Mission Impossible. Hands up who thinks that might be something true about Rhiana. Yes, there's some hands there, some hands over there. Yes. Oh, hi, Andrea. Good to see you back. Well, I have to spoil it. She wasn't in Mission Impossible and James Bond, but in fact, she was a stunt double before. And so a very active founder. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Rhiana Spring, CEO and founder from Spring Act. Welcome, Rhiana. So let's hop on to the next founder. Maybe the battery is off tonight. I clicked too much in the dry run, guys. So to the next slide, $45. Maybe I need another clicker. So, I jumped too fast. $45 is the average income of a person living in Sierra Leone. Okay, and the next company I'm going to introduce you to is called Social Income. And what they try to do is to really distribute income to help the least fortunate in a part of the world where it's most affected. The way how they do that is to create a platform where all of you can donate 1% of your income to people in need, so that they will receive it directly where they live. And the way how he does that, it's really inspiring, is to use mobile payment. Mobile payment in the sense of that they receive literally an SMS, not WhatsApp, not Twint, an SMS, and it's currency there. They can use it to buy stuff, they can trade it for cash, and they can immediately make use of that money without having to go through a lengthy process. Once again, he uses technology to enable that. The next fun story about Sandro is that, sometimes founders come with a very creative background and, have a passion being next to a digitalized person, very passionate for art. So Sandro was actually Sandino, was the first person to create a conceptual art exhibition in North Korea. Oh, Sandino. I don't know if people trust your art curating skills so much. Anyone who thinks that could be true? Oh, okay. Have you been to that exhibition, maybe? Well, it's actually true. He actually did that, which is a crazy story. I don't know how he did it, and we want to find this out later in the drinks. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Sandino Scheidegger. So 2% of all VC investments goes into female-led startups. The next company tries exactly to tackle that because it's a systemic problem, it's an information problem, it's a knowledge gap, and sometimes we just lack actions to do so. So she works together with organizations, startups, VCs, all together to help enable them to make better decisions, to make decisions differently, so that we can really change this number drastically today. Her fun fact was, and for those who've been here in the previous episode before, we already had someone before meeting the Queen, but actually turns out that she actually just go to the birthday party of the Queen, but the Queen never showed up. So Hilda actually has met the Queen, and the reason for that is that she got an award for the Queen's Leaders of the World for her endeavors when she was working with the MasterCard Foundation. So who thinks it's just one Queen story too much and thinks it's false, or you think it's actually crazy? It's like, yeah, okay, yeah. Just a little bit more trust in that story. So yeah, it's actually true. And you can see it here. It was a phenomenal moment, very magnificent, and I think you can only feel the energy by just looking at the picture of the magnitude, what it means to be rewarded for your hardship work. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage founder and CEO of WeBloom. So welcome on stage, all three of you. Crazy stories, and you have to tell the audience later in the drinks what's behind all that. But mostly we're here for all your mission, your purpose, right? Because you really want to create impact, but you believe in the same time that technology could be the lever of it. But in good old-fashioned, we go through the rounds, and we start with you, Rhiana. May you quickly introduce what Spring-Act does, and how we can imagine the chatbot.
Yeah, thanks, Hans. Spring-Act connects human rights and technologies to empower individuals to take action and help eliminate global social injustices. More concretely, what that means is, as Hans said, we developed the world's first chatbot for survivors of domestic violence that helps people gather potential evidence and seek help in every single country in the world.
And we're going to dive deeper into that much later, because I think what we're also here, on the one hand, we're here to talk about technology and why technology could be a lever for that, but also to uncover the whole topic of domestic violence, because it's amongst us, sadly. We had previous discussion around that before, that it's a false assumption to think that no one is not connected to that topic. Sandino, besides being an art creatist, social income, what does it do? How does it distribute wealth, and how does it help the less fortunate with your platform and technology?
So you mentioned it before. It is actually what we do is sending money from point A to Z. And there's a big awareness of global poverty. We all live in a world where there's more than 700 million people living in poverty. So the first number could have been actually also the poverty number. Congratulations, whoever said it. It's a sad number, the same with the $45, which is just not enough to have a decent life where you can make your own choices. And so that's where we think there's the awareness, there's a technology to send money from point A to Z. Let's just do it, and we built a platform around it to scale it up, and that's our main mission. We're in poverty reduction. That's our mission.
And we were previously chatting about it, but can you give us a grasp how you're scaling currently already? Like how many donations are being happening through it? How many families you might be able to help? And yeah.
So we started 3 years ago, just before COVID hit. So we had to be fast, and I think that's where it was most needed as well, as we talking for Switzerland had quite a lot of help. You didn't fall through the net, and in other countries there's no social assistance programs, so that's where we wanted to be. Why Sierra Leone? Because it's on the lower end or on the upper end, depending what ranking you take. It's always opposite of Switzerland in wealth or poverty, so that's where we started. And we have meanwhile over 2,000 payments been made. The pilot phase is kind of coming to end that we can now scale up. We built the product behind with engineers, lots of them also from Zurich.
Wow, and I'd love to dive in on that in a bit. Hilda, your heart has always been helping the world and shaping and making it a better place, whether it was with the MasterCard Foundation or now with WeBloom. So can you give us a quick insight into what WeBloom does and what's your mission?
Yeah, of course. Well, Hans, firstly, thank you for having me here. It's really great to be in such a vibrant community with so many different curious founders, and glad to be included in that. So at WeBloom, what we're doing is really trying to make diversity and inclusion in tech a reality. So the way we see it at WeBloom is that tech is so pervasive in our lives, right? It's everywhere. You can't spend a whole day without having some sort of interface with tech. But it's something a bit more subconscious in terms of how we really tangibly see how it affects us. And so we understand that WeBloom, there are two main branches within the tech ecosystem that is really defining the current trends and phenomenon. So on the one hand, we work very closely with VCs, because what VCs do are basically investing in the future. So we're here at Google today. When Google was founded, it was supported with VC funding, right? So where VC money is going right now, it's going to shape the next 10 to 15 years of how the world looks like. So we're really kind of conscious about where this VC financing is going, which you saw in that number, about 2% is going to female founders, meaning 98% of VC financing currently in Europe going to male founders. And of course, morally, one can say that's not a good number, right? Just on a moral ground that we want to have everyone included. But the consequences are way more severe than just kind of not having women participate within early stage investing as males do. The consequences are that we get products and services that do not cater to the needs of all users. That is the consequence of having homogeneous teams, homogeneous tech teams, homogeneous founders that are all male or all female even. There are huge consequences in terms of what the end of that life cycle is going to be. And we've seen that often with products and services that are innately biased and innately sexist, and the root cause of that is not having enough diversity in the room. And you can trace that back to VCs just not investing in more diverse teams, right? And then on the other hand, we also understand that it's important to work with corporates such as Google, because the VCs are shaping the future, but the corporates are determining the present, right? These are the products and services we are currently using, and also within the corporate space, the numbers are also quite embarrassing. So about 22%, I think, of corporate tech jobs are, owned by women, or rather women make up 22% of tech jobs in total, which again also has severe consequences to the products and services we all are currently consuming. So at WeBloom, we're trying to disrupt these two main challenges, so really getting to the root cause of why VCs are making these sorts of decisions, and understanding how we can diversify talent and also diversify deal flow.
Now, we're all now here digital natives and in the tech scene, and we think it's just an engineering problem because engineering, IT professions tend to be more male dominant and so on. But when we had a conversation earlier, You said it even goes further back, for example, in classic product development. Like you gave me the example of the seatbelt. I don't know if you want to quickly share the story of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a common story that's shared within diversity and inclusion because it's one of the most scary ways that this challenge manifests itself. So basically, I think up until a year ago, most women were, I don't remember the exact number, but they were more likely to die in car crashes because of...
22% more likely to die.
There you go. Thank you, Rhiana. Because of the way the seat belts were designed, they were designed using male dummies, right? So something like this, just having more women in the room, something as simple as that, could have solved that problem. And the consequence, again, put aside moral, moral things, is lives at risk because not having the right kind of teams in the room. And then there's another example of VR glasses, because of physiologically women have different hearing senses, and many of the VR headsets that were released actually caused more nausea amongst women because, of course, unfortunately, not enough testing was done with women in the product design. So that's another consequence of these homogenous teams, maybe on a founder level or tech team product design level. So yeah, I think it's really important to bring home the really dire impacts of the consequences. It's not just a nice to have, let's have more women around, oh yeah, it's cool. But it's also really important. The consequences are really, really critical.
So for anything from product design, as old as a seatbelt to even the most advanced technological invention coming out these days, they're still having biases in their DNA, right? And that needs to change. And I like that you said that VCs are shaping the future, right? So where the money goes is how the future will look like. With only 2% going into female-founded startups, that's definitely not a good picture for today, and not good for the future either. Before we're going to go into the part why you use tech as a lever and where you see that as a vehicle to deliver your purpose, I think it's always especially with the impact glasses on, it's very important to understand why you started, what you did, right? So your personal story behind the company. So Rhiana, to you, thinking of Spring Act, can you tell us a story how actually Sophia, the chatbot, started and how you got to that idea?
Yeah, sure. It's always long ago before you actually hear about it in the world. I was stationed, like you said, with the UN in Senegal at the time, in West Africa, and I had 5 refugees come to see me, and I was working for OHCHR, so not the refugee agency, and they'd been coming to my predecessor and predecessor and predecessor for 5 years, and nothing had been done. And I was new to the country. I was quite frankly overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do. One of the issues was a refugee trying to put his kid into school. They had fled 3 different wars beforehand, and by the time they settled in Senegal and she could go to school, she was too old for the class she should be in. And that was the barrier to get her in. And like I said, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to do, but I mentioned it over lunch to a friend, and she happened to know the Senegalese system really well. And within 1 weekend, she had found 3 solutions. And within 1 month, this kid was in school. And for the only reason that her father happened to come and see me, and I happened to mention this over lunch, and her, destiny had changed by chance. And that's when I just found that this can't be. You can't just determine someone's future based on chance. And I started developing. First, they were kiosks. I wanted to do kiosks with little computers that they could look for help. Then it was a website. Then it was an app. And in the end, a chatbot. And then the pandemic hit, and domestic violence rose so drastically that we wanted to take action in that regard. And we focused in the more broad technology of connecting vulnerable people with organizations that can help, to how a chatbot can guide survivors of domestic violence to help. Because the barrier there is still so high.
So literally through the pandemic, and I think we all read headlines around that during the time that domestic violence is going really off the roof, right? When everyone literally has to be at home, and there's no ecosystem anymore for the victims also to go get away from that. system. So that's what made you to narrow down on domestic violence through the chatbot. So can you tell us a little bit about some anecdotes on domestic violence, things the public usually doesn't really know or categorize it in the way that what domestic violence could be, right? Can you give us some stories of domestic violence?
That's a really good question. Nobody asks that. I'm really glad you did. There's many, many, many myths, unfortunately. So I would say the most common, well, two most common myths. One is that domestic violence is only physical, and that's not true. Like anyone that ends up in a shelter, 98% of women ending up in a shelter have been financially abused. So for example, they put all the family money in his name and all the, I'm saying his, there's a lot of men also that are affected by domestic violence. It's just disproportionately high for women. So the abuser puts it in all the money in their name and all the bills in her name, for example, or there's emotional abuse, manipulation, all these things that are less visible. So that's really important because physical violence is very often the last step. So we try and kind of find out when it happens before that we can stop it there before it gets to literally life or death situation. And speaking of life or death, in Switzerland, which is actually the second myth, is that very often I pitch Sophia and then afterwards somebody comes to me, is like, such a terrible, terrible issue, but I'm very lucky. I don't know anyone. There's no one in my friends circle, family that has suffered from this. And I can guarantee to every one of you in here, you know someone, most likely multiple people that are suffering from domestic violence or have suffered. You just don't know. And I didn't think I knew someone until I founded Sophia, and it was kind of a safe place. You can talk to me now about that, obviously. And left and right, friends came to me. One even said, like, oh, it's normal. Everyone's been through that, haven't they? And again, you know, manipulation. And so that's really important to know that you can, just be aware and see where the signs are that you can hopefully help. In Switzerland, again, you know, here more than in other countries, people think that it doesn't really exist here. And in Switzerland, every week, there's an attempted murder on a woman by her partner or ex-partner, and every second week, a murder in Switzerland.
Literally, you made me. We never talked about this part before, and it leaves me speechless in such a small country where we think we're all safe and we hope that everyone is safe. It is crazy. And we talked about it too, because you said, like, you know, even breaking out of that cycle is so hard for the victims, because when you have friends and family and they'd be like, even if they dare to speak up, they're being shut down by their environment. How could that person be violent to you? He could never do that, right? Like, he's such a nice guy. And these are the moments where we create an ecosystem where we don't even, create a topic around that, right? And opening up, I think that's really the first thing, right? To acknowledge that it does exist. The stats is crazy.
Yes, exactly, and that's what we're trying to do with Sophia, is not replace any services, but really lower the barrier that people go there, because you have to imagine that the person that is doing this to you is probably the love of your life, or has been the love of your life. You might have kids, and to admit that to yourself is massive. To admit that to a friend is huge. Even to support services that are literally here to help you, that barrier is so high. So with Sophia, we really want to kind of, like you said, in the pandemic, right, you're literally locked at home with your abuser and you can't call. So you can just very casually, you can chat to Sophia on sophia.chat or on WhatsApp or Telegram or anything, and just anonymously just see, what are the signs of abuse? Is this right, what I am experiencing? Is this normal? What can I do? What are my options? Can I leave? What are my rights, for example? If my visa is tied to my abusive husband, can I stay? All these things you can just, like, very casually, nobody needs to know that you're reaching out for help. And then if you do see you want to leave, Sophia guides you how you can and how to gather potential evidence that you do have this proof, at least for yourself, if not in courts, to really show what has happened.
I like the fact that you tackle them from a perspective to say we need to lower the barrier of entrance in order to even have the chance to demystify things, right? Speaking of lowering barrier of entrance, right? Sandino, the concept of donation is very old. It does exist, right? What has triggered you to say there needs to be a disruption, there needs to be something to make it better? Maybe we start from what is actually not going well today with the process of donation, and why is it still the fact that so many people are being hindered to donate?
So it's known that donation takes detours. On the end of the day, if you pay $1, 65 cents actually get to the people in need, like an average number. Also disputed, maybe it's 75, it doesn't matter, it's a lot. It's not lost on the way, but it doesn't reach, because the person actually paying the $1, they have something in mind what should happen with that $1. So what we said is what hinders you to actually step up or get into the game of fighting poverty, because the awareness is all around. Everyone knows about the global poverty. We wear clothes made in places where global poverty is huge. We do care, but then what are the reasons why don't we do something? And if you ask a lot of people, yeah, are you aware? Yes. Should we do something? Yes. Would you lift out someone out of poverty if you have the chance to do so? Everyone says yes. And then what happens? Not much. Some people do a lot. But then you ask the question, yeah, but who should actually help? Oftentimes you then end up in the discussion about the rich, the 1%, and you could even say, yeah, should it be Bill Gates? And yes, he's the guy who should solve the poverty. But we forget, if we point to the richest people in the world, we point at us. Even if you earn more than 50,000 a year, you belong to the richest people in the world, income-wise, to the 1%. So you're actually pointing at yourself. And with technology, I think it's possible. And the tipping point for me was when it was the most boring office you can imagine in Biel. It's a government office. And I got this letter in front of me, which said, would you like to pay 1% of your income tax-free into the pension fund? And I'm never saving money, so I thought, like, that's a good idea. On the way home, I thought, like, it's interesting. Now I do something which might happen in 30 years, maybe not, my retirement, but I feel safe in any way. So I was thinking, what could you do with the money at the moment too? And maybe that's where my second part, my background is also from Costa Rica, where people think about today. And I think the majority of the world thinks about today. We think about tomorrow. But the question is, what can we do today to actually make people's life better? And I think that's where money comes in. It also has to do with trust. At the same time, if you get your pension, would you like that the state tells you shouldn't go to that restaurant, you should do that? No, we know how to get best out of our situations. And I think that counts even more so for people in poverty, who have an idea how to escape poverty, but often they just don't have the money to do so, the options, or they just need a break sometimes, because always thinking about today, that's quite a challenge.
Yeah, I remember in our earlier conversation, you told me, like, during the pandemic, I mean, it's common in a lot of people, and I love the fact that it wasn't stigmatized, needed extra help from the government, right? And it didn't come with a huge list of ask what to do. So why should we do that when we pass it on to other countries, right? And yeah, and what I want to get into another misconception of donation, because in our earlier conversation, right, when I told that story to friends, and we just had an evening conversation, they were like, yeah, but isn't the money just going to waste? Don't they just don't know how to spend that money, and it's just going to go into alcohol and everything else, and it's gone for nothing, right? That's a common misconception, right?
Yes, actually, cash donations, direct cash transfer, as it's called in the technical term, is arguably the most researched anti-poverty instrument, and it has been around for quite a while. It's also something which is a huge trend. There's no software for it. That's where we come in with the technology, and I think it will be just growing, because it's very expensive to bring to bring in-kind donations to every place in the world. Sometimes it's needed. I'm not saying it's the only solution. It's one of many solutions, and it happens to be the most efficient in many situations. And as long as there is even a market to use the money, because if there's no market to use the money, for example, you will go with something else. And yeah, I think it goes also back to the idea of equality. Everyone is always cheering about equality, but we tend to forget that without social justice and economic justice, there will be no equality. And I think that's why it's also not by accident the SDG 1, because it's so much a base problem which interlinks with many other issues we have, which are on the list of the SDGs, but poor people tend to have less options, you said it in the beginning as well, and then in some certain situations, for example, that's how we match up, I think, well too, is people who have suffered from domestic violence, if you don't have the financial means to get out of this situation, risk is high that you just go back where you found yourself before it happened.
As simple as buying a bus or a train ticket just to escape physically, right? Yeah.
Maybe to this one, because now I can finally use it because we're in Zurich. You say the train ticket. A lot of the people who worked at the social income, they have been studying at the University of Zurich or the ETH. And the idea was also to make it as simple as making a recurring donation. While you take the polyband from the bottom to the top, you should be able to do a recurring donation, having a lasting impact. And I think that we achieved. We tested it the other day, and it's even if we're halfway up, if you use Apple Pay or you have your credit card on your phone already, that you can make the donation. I think that's also the fun behind technology, because it gets you can make yourself your own goals and reach them.
I like that. All the ETH students here, next time you're going to the campus, no excuses anymore. So you spoke about equality, Hilda. Before WeBloom already, it was in your DNA to change. But what was the triggering moment where you say, I'm creating this company called WeBloom, and this is exactly how I'm going to tackle it? Can you walk us through again?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was like a moment where there was like this eureka moment, light bulb, I'm going to create WeBloom. I think there's many little moments that basically brought me to, where WeBloom is now, which I'm very proud of. But I think it goes back. Even being a founder, I really kind of stumbled into that. It was not intentional, even though I really feel I was bred to be a founder now when I look back at my life, because I grew up with, 2 diplomatic parents. So every 3 years we were in a new country, meaning every 3 years my siblings and I were the new kids, right? So you can imagine like that basically always being the underdog, always being the new kid, and always having to kind of adapt to new things. I also grew up swimming very competitively and was super, super into that, maybe a bit too much. But I was, that kind of, nurtured a lot of competitiveness in me. And also the way I grew up, we lived in South Africa and Ethiopia, and we also lived in the US and the UK. So kind of seeing the disparity of all of the issues that Rhiana and Sandino have been speaking about, and how there are such huge gaps around the world. But at the same time, everyone is also so the same. So, we're all so different with so many different cultures, but ultimately behind it all, we all share this weird consistency of being human, which I've found in all of the friends that I've collected, right? I could have a friend from Ethiopia and a friend from New York, and they're so similar, even though they're like worlds apart. So being at a very young age, constantly adapting to new environments, I think bred that resilience in me, and also bred that kind of restlessness. So I get bored very quickly. So after 3 years, I'm like, okay, where are we going now? What's the next thing? So all of that really kind of informed me. But yeah, once I graduated from my master's program, I studied development studies. I really kind of delved into the world of international development and got super close and passionate about, sustainability, and all of kind of the issues that are pulling us back, which gender is a huge one. And that's kind of one that always stuck with me, of course, because I'm a woman, but also because I've seen directly how these issues manifest and how they affect women. So I've always been curious about that. But yeah, the one moment I think that kind of really pushed me to start WeBloom is when I was actually working with a MasterCard Foundation. And at the time, you know, I was talking to a lot of VCs, and that's kind of when I saw there is really this huge gap in investment to female founders. So I was kind of trying to get a sense of why is there this gap? Like, is there a logic behind it, or is it coincidental? So I started talking to some VCs, and some of them gave me really like cut and dry answers. Oh, we just don't get any pitches from them. We don't get any inbound. And then one VC told me off the record, I won't say who, they said, yeah, but if I invest in a female founder, what if they get pregnant? What if their husband disagrees? And that really struck me because I was like, this is the kind of this is what's informing his decision-making, something that has nothing to do with the pitch, with the value of what the woman is bringing to the table. So that was just a little anecdote, and that kind of pushed me to dig a little deeper to see if there's any substance here. And I found more and more that actually it's more of a trend than an exception, that most VCs have this impression. And there's been so many studies done, that one particular study where they had one pitch and a male pitch it and a woman pitch it the same exact way, and the support was disproportionately in favor of the man, right? With the same exact pitch, same numbers, same traction, same idea, and we see it again and again. I mean, even with the recent, Sam Bankman-Fried issue, I mean, there's been reports that said that he didn't even have the right pitch. It was so sloppy, but somehow he got support from, the biggest VCs. So this for me was just deeply unfair, like just bottom line unfair. At least, if it's something where women are not doing as well, they're not having the, equal amount of value, that's fair. But if all of these decisions, the main trends are pointing towards like an inherent bias, and of course the fact that VCs in Europe, 90% men. In the US is even worse. I think it's about 95% male VC professionals. That's a huge problem, and it's in the Western world. I mean, I know we're talking about issues like in the developing world, but there are issues, like Rhiana said, with also domestic violence right on your doorstep, on something that I think we should have figured out by now. So that's really what drove me to dig a little deeper and try to understand how I can best position myself to disrupt this challenge. For us at WeBloom, we're not trying to focus on helping female founders with their pitches. We're really trying to focus on the VCs themselves. So that's our target. We need to, break down these biases and really target them directly, which I think in the space currently, most of the solutions around this challenge is always, okay, let's help the female founders, better their pitch and give them this training. And it's like, but they're not the problem, right? It's the VCs that are the problem. They're the ones that have this bias, which, by the way, we all have biases, women and men alike. And the problem is if you have 90% of people with the same bias, it's not going to be a very positive outcome. So I think my background is what gave me the tenacity to basically, come to Switzerland 5 years ago with knowing nobody, just, Switzerland was never on my radar, but still having the drive and ambition to kind of see this through. I'm
sure at this moment, a lot of founders, like you triggered a lot of thoughts, and I have a lot of conversation too because on a daily basis, I work with startups here in Switzerland, that the founders are saying, like, it's just so hard, like, it's just maybe not possible, right? And what can we actually do? But it can be done to bring in, increase the teams and show the capabilities, right? You actually did that with your engineering team, right? Maybe you want to tell us a quick story before we dive into the tech part. and then we were shifting gears because we're going to have one more speaker coming up later. But first, yeah, how do you manage to get your engineering team to, what was it, 100% female and non-binary gender? Was that correct?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite questions that I get. Well, we've diversified a bit now, like Hilda said. Diversity is the most important thing. Like, for all numbers, like, actually, women CEOs outperformed, just this quarter, outperformed male CEOs in the market. Female founders, they gain more revenue than, it's like, not just unfair or we should, but it's actually money. If you want to make money, get a more diverse team. It's just proven over and over again. But yeah, so when we launched Sophia, we had a 100% women and non-binary team, which I'm super proud about, because I love the question when people go, oh, who are your guys who, or in German, of course, Ingenieure, like, who are your male engineers, basically. I'm like, why do you think they're male? Like, we have a amazing Italian woman and a non-binary person from Greece that joined us. And I'm a human rights lawyer by trade, but specifically focused on women's rights. That's why these topics, I know all the facts as well, because this is really where my heart is. And so I knew a few tricks to do to attract more diverse talent. For example, unfortunately, in Switzerland especially, women don't come back to work full-time after having kids because of the system. We won't get into that too much. And so we desperately needed 100, like, a full-time position filled, but every job post that we put online is 50 to 100%. And that's how we found the non-binary person who is the most talented engineer that I've ever met. They wouldn't have joined if it was a full-time position. We're very value-based, and we put that right at the start of our job description as well. Like, values, this is what we stand for, this is the impact we want to have. Flexibility, big written, capital letters, big flexibility, which no company has an excuse anymore since the pandemic. You can be flexible. And it helps to have a diverse team. So you go on our website, we have, I think, probably like 80% women. Our core team, we have 80 volunteers working from us from 40 countries, but our core team, we are 9 people with 11 nationalities, and we are all but one man. We have one man, one non-binary, and the rest are women. And to see women in your team, especially in management and the higher positions. But if you can't get those right now, because for every reason, start getting more diverse teams in general, and women and more diverse people would want to join as well. That's my tips. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think you said it beautifully, Rhiana. Well done.
Yeah, because I think the takeaway here should be really that, and hold me accountable on the statistics, but there's studies showing that a female needs to feel 90% ready for a job before she puts herself forward for promotion or a salary increase or a new job. 100%. 100%, 110% sometimes.
Yes, a woman will statistically only apply for a job when she fulfills 100% of the criteria, whereas men tend to go for jobs when they fulfill 60%. 60%, right. So way more risk-taking, and obviously you will get way more applications as founders from male if you advertise a new job. But I encourage you all to not just stop there, but continue looking for, stretch the job description, give the flexibility, because then you seek out the real talents out there. Because by the end of the day, a job description is nothing more than just a one-pager, but what you do with that is a real powerful thing. I would maybe add one more thing, actually, that Hilda drawed upon as well, is the unconscious bias. Everyone has biases, absolutely everyone. If you're aware of them, just make sure, am I not comfortable with this woman interviewing because she's a woman and I'm a man, and therefore, it's normal, it's okay. Speak about it. Like, we speak about it very openly in our team as well, which feels sometimes a bit uncomfortable because you don't talk about it like that, but just be aware of that. Why am I feeling uncomfortable? Uncomfortable is a very often feeling that I get a lot. It's like, I don't want to vote for that politician. Why? I don't know why, it just doesn't feel very comfortable. To open a conversation, which we're soon going to get into, I'm going to close it off with one more question before we invite our next guest on stage. We have talked a lot about your purpose, your mission, your focus. Well, we didn't actually talk a lot about technology, so I want to close it with this round, because we're going to continue the panel discussion. What is your hope from technology to help you solve your mission? What is that going to do? Draw us a vision how technology
in your specific part, not just the features, not just the platform, but why this and not, for example, alternatives. You were talking about building kiosks instead in the countries to inform, but why technology, and what is your hope that it can help you deliver the purpose?
Everything. I'm so excited to be in this sphere, especially connecting human rights and technology, something that I don't we are considered really innovative for what we're doing with our chatbot. And in 2023, we should not be. The potential that we can have with technology to help, you know, the poorest people in the world on our doorstep, people that need their voices amplified, that need help, that are too far away. Like you said, Sandino, you can't always go and give in-kind donations. But a team, I was alone first, and a few volunteers, we managed to then launch Sophia. We were 4 people. You know, in our living rooms, it was the pandemic, that Mao have managed to reach 15,000 people have chatted to Sophia since the launch in December 2021. And just the potential of technology to help everyone on this planet is just excites me. This is why I get up every morning.
I love how you humbly say technology shouldn't, chatbot to fight domestic violence shouldn't even excite us anymore, technologically speaking, but we should be out there really fulfilling the mission, because it cannot be the excuse anymore for technology. Does that go for wealth distribution as well?
Yes, if you look at poverty, I think it needs 2 things. One is kindness of the human. I think goes back to what you said, that all humans should remember that's what we share in common. And I would say there's something else which we share in common, and that's we all have a phone. And that phone, let's use it for the best. And I think that's where technology comes in, not because of the phone, but also because it makes it scalable. And if we talk about poverty or climate change, at one point we're too far in that we couldn't deploy technology to actually fight the cause, because just by buying the right clothes, it's not going to change much. Actually, we have to start doing things and try to scale it.
And there's a common misconception both of you hated to hear, is that there's no innovation left in NGOs. It just as it is, and I love that you both are really spearheads to defy that notion. So can you round this picture up, Hilda, and tell us what can technology look like when we reach the 50-50 level?
I mean, I think Rhiana is a great example of that, right? I think for us at WeBloom, we're kind of upstream of technology, where we understand all of the great benefits that technology can have on society if we do indeed intentionally put diversity and inclusion at the core of it. You know, we feel like that's the missing piece that can really accelerate the positive effects of technology on society. And Rhiana and Sandino are great examples of that. And, you know, these sorts of solutions are what really inspires me and drives what WeBloom is trying to do, to really build a critical mass of technologies that are trying to integrate diversity and inclusion, not only internally, but also build products and services for everyone, consciously and intentionally. And hopefully that will result in more Rhianas and more Sandinos, and that's really the goal. So I'm very, you know, optimistic about technology and very excited about, you know, engaging with all of our partners in making these, let's say, very niche topics around diversity and inclusion more mainstream.
So equality as an accelerator for innovation.
Yes.
Bringing more people together as a human species. These are wonderful anecdotes. And again, don't rest on our laurels and thinking that the chatbot should be the most innovative thing, but push our boundaries even more so we can really do improvements. I'd like to make a little comma here, because usually, and for those who have been here before, we like to end it up with a perspective from a senior Googler, someone who has done a lot of work in that field also and can share their personal perspectives, because that Googler usually comes with a lot of story too. And so the next person I want to welcome you on stage, besides her day job as an industry manager, which, by the way, she's been with Google for more than 10 years, so she has seen our early days when we still felt more like a startup than the household name today. She is very much engaged in bringing education to the population. She works on initiatives at Google, which we call now today Grow with Google, a global movement. And she localizes that movement to the campaign called Atelier Digital, bringing skill sets to Switzerland. And the true fact, so now maybe to get you guys a little bit more involved again, and you got to tell us, we have a no-car policy here at Google, by the way. No Googlers owns a company car to drive around, not even the self-driving ones. So that is why Evelyn owns 21 bicycles because she just fell in love with cycling so much. Hands up who thinks this is just another normal Googler or think, yeah, that's way too many bicycles. So, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So, yeah. In fact, she does have 21 bicycles, anything from a gravel bike, from a tandem bike, for a race bike, for a road bike. I heard names I didn't even know it exists as a bike. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Evelyn Loy. Evelyn, thank you for joining us on stage. Welcome.
Of course. I now can talk about bicycles.
Exactly. So which one is your favorite?
Actually, at the moment, it's my full suspension mountain bike. Yeah, it's a GT one.
A fully. Yeah. So anyone who's into cycling and bicycles.
Yeah, ask me anything about Kashima finish and so on. Yeah, go on.
But so between your absolute hobby, your day job, you drive a lot of initiative for Google as well and representing us, right? You're also, as we can see here, you're the Women at Zurich lead, so you really bring awareness into the movement. So can you tell us a little bit what your extracurriculum work, if we may label them like that, consists of?
Yeah, of course, I'm happy to do that. And actually, it's quite the same like what you are doing. You've been talking about lowering barriers, also working with our unconscious biases and so on. And this is the same that I try to do here, to make digital know-how available to everyone in Switzerland. So, most of the time you only have access if you have the money for that, or you already have a base education, and then you can go on further. And if you lack that, there is actually no way to move your career, to develop your professional career. So this is actually what I'm invested in doing. And the thing is, we heard quite a lot about diversity, and it's not out of bad will that this takes so long to change. It's just we're humans. We like what we know. And to have more diversity in teams, I think, you feel uncomfortable. And the thing is, if I have a person in front of me who thinks like me, and I know that it will be easy to work with that person. But if I have a diverse team where people have different opinions, it takes quite a lot of patience. It takes quite a lot of goodwill. The results will be better. We all know that. But and this is also make here education available to everyone, and especially in digital to women, because also of gender modesty norms, and so on. The thing is, also in Switzerland, we don't have that many girls interested in coding. So, if they get interested then a little later, then we're here and we offer everything.
You also, and that is exactly why you go a step even earlier, and you work with the education sector quite a lot, right? And you specifically work with the Association for Young Female Entrepreneurs, right? Giving the title Mut zur Chefin, so courage to be a female leader. Can you tell us a little bit more about that initiative?
Oh yeah, actually I've also founded 1 or 2 companies back then when I was a student, just trying my hand on websites and so on. And then I was connected to this startup community, and also to some associations there. And we saw that they have quite a lot of founders, but not that many women. And then it was just interesting to know, hey, what is hindering women to just start their own company? And there are other topics, actually. It's about security. Do I earn enough money? How about, you've been talking about time. Will this be over 100% job? I don't have the time, I do have family and so on. So we do this actually, what is it? It is a workshop to really support women who actually want to have their own startup, but they do have these fears. It's quite different than for most men.
What are a few things, and I mean, sometimes even female founders themselves fall under the misconception that they think they shouldn't do that. So what are few misconceptions for female founders you hear a lot where you say, no, this is not true, or you encourage them to go beyond that, whether a male looking for a female founder or a female founder trying to start themselves, where they say, I can't be a female founder because...
Yeah, it is, of course, financial security, saying, hey, I do not have the money, then founding, of course, it's quite a topic, yeah. Who will invest in me? Then also, self-confidence. It is quite difficult to stand in front here, also for me tonight, yeah, I'm quite nervous, to say, hey, yeah, I did that, and also then go and pitch for your startup. Not everyone feels comfortable about talking about achievements that we have. So I think it's quite there. And there is also this gender modesty norms. Here in Switzerland, women and men do not really like women that talk about their success. Yeah, it's... Sorry, there are studies about, there are like, some consulting firms have done that. It was, I think, in 1989 was the first study. Yeah, you can remember, you have all the data, I see. And yeah, it's just, and I thought, yeah, that was 20 years ago. You see, the thing is, if a woman stands in front of, let's say, like it's a team meeting and is telling, hey, what she did, great things and so. And then there are men and women as well that think, oh, she shouldn't do that. That doesn't feel so good. And other women who see this reaction, they will then not be encouraged to also step into the spotlight and talk about their successes. And they did the same study again 20 years later, and the data was it hasn't changed. Yeah, it was just a little change, but it is still, and this is also a reason why we do not have that much women on C-level. Yeah, so also it is on us to have a little more self-confidence, and this is something, one can exercise to do.
And I like that the fact that you make it approachable, right? It's not just a stamp, and so it is, but you challenge the status quo and you say it can be exercised, right? One exercise you even told me that it can be sometimes as simple as getting down to your voice, right? As people get more nervous, their diaphragm like tensen up together, your voice get higher. But then what happened, Evelyn?
Yeah, when you hear me talk like that, but when my voice goes like that, I will not, you will not perceive me as very competent. And this is just what happens when we are very engaged in a conversation, so our voice tends to just go a little higher. And this is not actually helpful to be perceived as a person who knows what she's doing and has quite a competence in her field. So yeah, that's it. So there actually are also courses about voice coaching where you learn to speak in your natural voice. So a little lower, it's helpful.
So first of all, and that's to close off the round, be aware of the unconscious biases. Understanding that some of it you can tackle it, you can actually be aware of it. And then, because, please.
Yeah, and I mean, it's natural. I could tell you about the stories, hey, in the early days, when there were mammoths and whatever creatures, and if it would have taken you 10 seconds to decide, oh, is this animal dangerous or not? You would have been killed. So our brain is really like that. If we see something most of the decisions we do are just on our experience that we have, and it's automated. So it's not out of bad will that we react like that. It's just we have to do it to survive. But to challenge that, and this is also what you said, hey, also, I had also to realize that I was the same. I was also like these other women. When I saw someone standing in the spotlight, I said, oh, why is she doing that? And actually, I then asked myself, why do I think like that? Why do I experience like that? And it was most of the time because I was jealous, to be honest. So I challenged myself there. Also, tried to change my behavior there. And now it is, if I see someone stepping in the spotlight or also someone who gets promoted, I ping these people here internally, say, hey, it's great that you did that. I'm so happy for you. I think it's really important that we support each other.
I love the closing notes, and I wish everyone now have a little bit of an example, what you think, what you could do, who you could ping, who you could give a tap on the shoulder, because I think that's exactly what the community is about. Despite all the inequality we already try to face and the startup we try to raise, the company trying to build, right? Sometimes as simple as a little tap hopefully gives us the courage to go forward. I'm not going to end here, because now you all are being included into the discussion. Let's have a quick look. Because I'm super aware of time, I know we're a little bit over, and I see people are stretching their backs already because there are going to be drinks, but I don't want your voice to be unheard. So let's switch to the slides exactly, and we do a quick round of those questions, because I want also the audience to be able to address it. So how did you land your first customer? And I'm being mean here. The person who asks can choose who they addressed it to, or if you don't raise your hand, I will ask it to someone else, anyone random. Okay. So the question was for Sandino.
So to first answer the question, your first customer was myself. So I think we should go by example. And then
how did you land that customer?
Yeah, it's a bad customer. And to answer the second question is, how do we decide on the country? It was purely based on statistics. That's where we have the biggest leverage or the biggest impact because of the leverage as the $45. So think about you, let's take the average, 1% of your income is 80 Swiss francs, meaning you can kind of help to two people to lift them out of poverty. So that's how it was based on data.
Yeah. I like that, because I think it's a mindset every founder can sometimes very easily forget. Where do I have the biggest impact? With my platform, with my software, with my solutions, right? Sometimes we tend to be so proud of the product we've built that we forget to focus on the market. And I think even in NGO, you're not shielded from that thought. I'm going to go quick. So we're going to go to the next question coming up. Question for Sandino. Here you go. Thank you for at least putting the name. How is your company, including the development efforts, funded? Is the legal setup for profit or not?
So our organization is not a company, it's a totally non-profit. That's how it's set up. It has governance, it has a board, and that's how it works. It has a development team, it has people working in the operation, all volunteers. We have 2 employees in Sierra Leone, which are doing the field work. Of course, they're employed, but otherwise, that's how it works at the moment. We keep our jobs. That's the way it works now at the moment. It also makes sense, but think of if I pay myself a salary, that's a lot of social incomes going away. So you can't start by paying out here a salary. So I think that's a decision we take in the team, and for the moment, that's how we work it, and it can change in the future. But something we really want to keep doing, and we're proud of, is that we can still send 100% of your donation directly to the people, because we work with companies or foundations who actually, or Google nonprofit actually giving us in-kind donations. That's how we actually pay whatever the delta is between what it costs to send money to certain places and what you donate.
So the challenge to the audience is, if you think you don't have enough money, try building a company with no money and survive. I like that. Next one. We're going to pick 2 more. How do you make money? Well, we're back to the money question. I'm not going to ask Sandino this time. And I'm not going to ask Evelyn, because I know. So whoever wants to likes to answer, I think Rhiana, if you don't mind, or you were just...
No, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, for us, the funds are super critical. So we do have a revenue model in place to make sure that we can actually deploy our solutions to our target beneficiary. And so the way we've set it up is that there's the beneficiary and there's a customer. So we want to make sure that our services are free for our beneficiaries. So our beneficiaries are female founders raising money, trying to get more VC funding, and female students trying to get tech careers. So we offer them solutions for free, access to the VCs in our network, and for the students, access to our fellowship, where they basically get a jump start on their tech careers through our partners, which Google is one of our partners. We're very proud of that too. And the way we have positioned ourselves to make money and stay financially sustainable is to basically have our customers be the VCs and corporations that we work with. So we are really coming in, solving their diversity and inclusion challenges, helping them access the diversified pool of talent for the corporations, and then for the VCs, diversifying their talent and their deal flow. So that's kind of how it's currently structured. Which is very important also for NGOs, that you have this plan kind of embedded, having a sustainable business model. And I think it is possible to have a model that doesn't kind of tamper your integrity, and making sure you put the beneficiary first and you can still serve them and not have it be a burden, because of course most beneficiaries within the NGO space don't always have the purchasing power to kind of feed a big revenue model. So it's good to be kind of conscious of that, particularly in the NGO space.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I was just saying it's a question we get asked quite a lot, and it's a reason why I actually, I started a company first, and this was supposed to be the non-profit part of the company, because the whole system of NGOs, the work we do, I would say is more important than the companies, but the models we do this by is really old. So we use 19th century institutions, 20th century methods to solve 21st century problems. It's just not viable anymore in the future. And so we don't make money in that sense, but we are, because we're getting asked this question a lot, we are now diversifying. So actually our next app, so for survivors of domestic violence, that's never going to change. We're never going to make money off that. We're never going to ask a survivor or person in a vulnerable situation to pay. But we are, because tech is at the heart, our next app is going to be actually to help especially women, but people in general, build confidence. And that market then is, you can pay for an app like that, or the digital safe. We're going to scale that for the UN, for example, to deploy in countries where the justice system has failed because of conflicts. But yeah, so we get that question a lot, but I wish people would ask, how can we help you reach more people? How can we help that you no longer have to beg for money here and there? It's like we have to beg here for a bit of money, there for a bit of money. I would like to spend my time increasing our impact, not begging for a little bit of money in a corporate sense, a tiny little bit of money that we could do so much more impact with.
Oh, that's a beautiful note. And I hope all of you who was waiting for the second question, forgive me if we just close on this note, because I think that's a beautiful question I'd like to round up with, because as we as the founder community thinks of making money sometimes, also asking how can we help, and as a startup to the outside world, but also each other, is definitely some beautiful words to round up today's session with. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a big round of applause for Rhiana, Sandino, Hilda, and Evelyn. Thank you very much. Have a seat. So thank you for your patience. We pulled a little over time. I am fully aware of that, but I hope you got to get a lot of insights, inspirations. Sometimes my heart skipped a beat really from the facts I've heard, but I hope this creates a larger conversation we can bring back to our companies and our daily life to make the world a little bit better, and sometimes technology can help us to get there. The last thing I ask you technologically to do is to scan this QR code. But again, you saw it at the beginning. We are now really across Europe. And that could have never happened without this slide. With your feedback, with your input, what you think it could be done better. And I encourage you, don't shy away to get any kind of feedback, because we read them all, and we saw a lot of funny feedbacks. Sometimes it was even about the food, about the temperature, about the sounds, whatever makes you feel comfortable tonight. But also, of course, give your feedback what you would like to see more. And we're going to test a format in April, because you see now we're in all these other great locations, to bring back also the watch party. So you can come together here for the community, you appreciate your mods, but in the same time, see and learn from all the other countries. How cool is that? So we want to get a little bit of feedback on that, what you're feeling on this part. But after April, where we plan to do the watch party, we will be back in May with the next physical founder story here. And if you have it scanned already, then we would like to send you off for the drinks, where my friends outside are going to give you a little sticker, or you see them lying around. There's a blue and a red one. And because sometimes in the community space you think, oh, I wish someone has gone through that challenge already, can share with me how they dealt with it, right? And I'm looking for a scale-up who's already past that point. Or as a scale-up, you wish you find another fellow founder who is at the same stage with you, and be like, oh my God, this is accelerating so much. How do you guys deal with it? And we didn't put a scientific measure whether you're a startup or a scale-up. We're very aware of there's definitions for that, but rather what you feel, you are, and the challenge you try to tackle, and we hope we're going to spark some conversation. Lastly but not least, again, Founder Story is only one of many initiatives for Google to help startups grow. You can later find out more through that QR code outside. We're going to put this on the screen there as well, so you can take your time there to screen, because as you're building a digital native startup, there's lots of support from Google helping you to grow your business. Ladies and gentlemen, it was my pleasure to welcome you today in the opening episode of Season 2, and I can't wait to welcome you back either for the watch party in April or in May here physically for the next Founder Story. And my colleagues are opening the door now. That's the cue. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and see you next time. Thank you.